It was a peaceful morning on Earth. People went about their daily lives, unaware of the disaster that was about to unfold. In the skies above, the sun shone brightly, and the world seemed to be in perfect harmony. Little did anyone know, an alien species was silently approaching, ready to change everything. The first sign of trouble came when the satellites picked up strange readings from deep space. At first it was dismissed as a malfunction, just another glitch in the system. But as the readings grew stronger and more frequent, concern began to rise in military command centers across the globe. Scientists and military officials were called in for an emergency briefing. They could not ignore the warning signs any longer. And then it happened. The sky split open. Massive ships so large they blocked out the sun entered Earth's atmosphere without warning. They moved with terrifying speed and precision. Panic spread quickly as people saw these enormous vessels in the sky, their surfaces gleaming with an otherworldly design. The world's defense systems scrambled to respond, but it was too late. The invaders had already made their presence known. The aliens made no attempt to communicate. There was no negotiation, no demands. Their ships simply hovered above major cities, their weapons aimed at the world's most populated areas. Earth's military quickly launched jets and fighter planes to intercept them, but they were no match. The alien ships were too powerful, their technology far beyond anything humans had ever seen. The planes were destroyed in seconds, leaving nothing but a trail of smoke behind them. In just a few moments, the invaders had gained total control of the skies. Earth's leaders were left with no choice but to retreat to underground bunkers. While the alien forces continued their bombardment, cities fell to the ground in flames, buildings crumbled, and the world's most advanced military forces were left helpless. But not everyone was willing to give up. Captain Riley, a seasoned officer in the United Earth Defense Force, UEDF, watched as the destruction unfolded. Her heart raced as she witnessed the devastation. She was in the command center of the UEDF main base, located in the heart of North America. Riley had seen wars, battles, and conflicts before, but nothing like this. Nothing prepared her for an invasion of this scale. The UEDF had trained for years for every possible scenario, but this was something they never anticipated. As the alien ships continued their assault, Captain Riley stood tall and focused, ignoring the panic around her. She knew that she had a responsibility to the people of Earth, and she would not back down without a fight. "We need a plan," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the chaos in the command center. "We cannot let them take our planet without a fight." A young officer turned to her, shaking his head. "Captain, look at their ships. They're too advanced. We have no chance against them. We need to evacuate." Captain Riley's eyes hardened. "No, we will not run. Humanity does not retreat. We fight. We find a way to fight back." Her words resonated through the room, and the officers around her paused. There was fear in their eyes, but there was also something else, hope. Captain Riley's confidence sparked a fire in them, a belief that they could still do something, even against impossible odds. She turned to the communication officer and ordered, "Get me a direct line to the global leadership. I need to speak with them now." Minutes later, she was on a secure video call with the leaders of the world. The faces of the President of the United States, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and the leaders of China, Russia, and other nations filled the screen. They all looked shaken, unsure of what to do. "Captain Riley, what is your plan?" the President asked, his voice heavy with fear. "We fight," she replied without hesitation. "We use every weapon we have. We use every resource we can. If they think we will surrender, they are wrong." The President's face flickered with uncertainty. "But our military has been decimated. Our cities are in ruins." "Then we regroup," Captain Riley said firmly. "We can rebuild, but we will not let them destroy everything we've worked for. Humanity will stand together, and we will fight." Her words were like a rallying cry, and the world's leaders began to nod. It wasn't much, but it was something. They couldn't allow their people to believe they were helpless. Captain Riley had given them a glimmer of hope, but as the conversation ended, the reality of the situation set in. The alien ships were still above them, their weapons still aimed at the planet. Earth had no idea what they were up against. The invaders had technology beyond imagination, yet Riley refused to back down. "Prepare the counterattack," she ordered, turning to her team. "We're going to make them regret underestimating humanity." The aliens had made a critical mistake. They thought humanity would run, that they would hide. But they didn't know who they were dealing with. Earth's people were resilient. They would not give up without a fight. And as Captain Riley looked out at the sky, she felt a surge of determination. The real battle was about to begin, and humanity was not going to retreat. They would stand their ground. It wasn't just about survival, it was about showing the invaders that Earth was not a planet to be taken lightly. The fate of the world now rested on their shoulders. The first shots of the war had been fired, but humanity's greatest weapon had just been unleashed, their unbreakable will to fight. The world was in chaos, but humanity was not ready to give up. The alien invasion had shattered the planet, leaving Earth's defenses in ruins. For the first time in history, humanity faced an enemy so powerful that it seemed there was no way to win. Yet, as the ashes of destruction settled, something extraordinary began to unfold. Humans began to rise from the rubble. Captain Riley stood at the command center, staring at the holographic map of Earth's shattered defenses. The alien fleet still loomed above the planet, their massive ships darkening the skies. It was impossible to ignore their presence. They were everywhere, but as Riley's gaze moved across the map, a small spark of hope ignited within her. It wasn't just the technology or the strength of humanity that could turn the tide, it was their resilience, their determination to survive, against all odds. "Captain, the enemy is regrouping," a young officer reported, snapping Riley out of her thoughts. "Their fleet is preparing for another strike." Riley turned toward the officer, her mind racing. She knew they were running out of time, and if they didn't act quickly, Earth could be lost forever. The aliens had made their mistake. They had underestimated the spirit of humanity. They believed that after a few devastating blows, Earth would fold, but they didn't realize that the harder the humans were pushed, the harder they fought back. "We need to hit them first," Riley said, her voice calm but filled with urgency. "We're going to use their overconfidence against them." The officer blinked, unsure if she understood. "But Captain, our forces are scattered. We don't have enough strength to make a full-scale attack." "Then we make a small, precise attack," Riley replied, a glint of determination in her eyes. "We go for their weaknesses. We don't need to take them down all at once. We chip away at them until they crack." The officer nodded, now understanding Riley's plan. She wasn't suggesting an all-out war. She was talking about a strategic strike that could give them an advantage, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The first step was to gather the remaining UEDF fighters, small but agile ships that could maneuver around the enemy's defenses. The UEDF had always been known for its ability to adapt quickly, to turn the tide in the most desperate of situations. Now that reputation was their only hope. They needed to strike fast and hard, before the aliens had a chance to reorganize their forces. As the remaining fighters were readied for launch, Riley stood in the command room, looking out through the panoramic window. The sight of Earth so beautiful and peaceful just a few days ago was now a battlefield. The skies were filled with alien ships, and in every direction, cities were burning. It was impossible not to feel the weight of what was happening. Yet, in the depths of her heart, Riley knew that if they could make it through this, humanity would emerge stronger than ever. The fighters launched in waves, their engines roaring as they soared into the sky, moving toward the alien fleet with a sense of urgency. The aliens had expected Earth to crumble under their assault, but they had failed to account for the one thing that could turn the tide: humanity's refusal to give up. Riley watched the fighter jets on the holographic screen as they flew toward the alien ships. The plan was simple but risky. They would use their speed to infiltrate the alien defenses and plant explosives on the enemy ships. It was a one-way mission, but it was their best shot at slowing the aliens down. For hours, the skies above Earth were filled with explosions and chaos. The alien ships retaliated fiercely, but the UEDF fighters were fast and relentless. One by one, they struck the alien ships with surgical precision, planting bombs on their critical systems. Every explosion sent a ripple of shock through the alien fleet, and slowly, the tide of the battle began to shift. The aliens were stunned. They had expected Earth's military to break under the pressure, to crumble in fear. Instead, the humans were fighting back harder than ever. The alien commanders scrambled to reorganize, but every moment they wasted gave the UEDF more time to strike. In one final push, Captain Riley launched a daring mission. She led a small team of elite soldiers to infiltrate an alien flagship. The mission was almost certain death, but Riley was determined to make the aliens pay for underestimating Earth, with a mixture of stealth and force. They breached the alien ship, planting explosives in the heart of its weapon systems. Riley watched as the ship began to falter, its once imposing presence beginning to crumble. As the alien flagship fell into chaos, the remaining UEDF forces launched their final assault. The alien fleet, once confident in its victory, was now on the defensive. The humans had proven that they were more than just survivors, they were warriors, and they would fight for their home, no matter the cost. Back at the command center, Riley received word that the alien flagship had been destroyed. A sense of relief washed over her, but it was quickly replaced with determination. This was just the beginning. Earth had struck back, but the real battle had only just begun. The aliens may have been stronger, but humanity had something they couldn't understand, a spirit that would never be broken. "We've done it," the officer beside her said, disbelief in his voice. "We've actually hit them." Riley nodded, her gaze still focused on the battle unfolding before her. "This is just the beginning. We've given them a taste of what humanity can do. Now we finish what we started." The alien commanders, stunned by the unexpected resistance, began to retreat. But they weren't giving up, they were regrouping, and they would be back. However, Earth's warriors were ready. This fight wasn't over, but humanity had proven that no matter how overwhelming the enemy, they would always rise again. The real battle had only just begun, and humanity's refusal to retreat would be their greatest weapon. The shockwaves of humanity's first strike against the alien fleet reverberated across the globe, shaking both sides to their core. The aliens, initially confident in their technological superiority, were now forced to reconsider their tactics. Their fleet had been damaged, their weapons disabled, and their once uncontested dominance over Earth was slipping. But they were not a species known for retreating. They had been through battles that crushed entire civilizations, and they would not let a few setbacks stop them. Meanwhile, Captain Riley stood at the heart of Earth's command center, gazing at the damaged ships on the tactical map. The initial victory had been unexpected, but it was just the beginning. Humanity had landed a significant blow, but the aliens were far from defeated. She could see their ships regrouping, preparing for a retaliation that would make the first wave of destruction seem like a mere warning. Riley knew the aliens' next move would be far more deadly, but she couldn't let fear creep in. She had to act. "We have to keep the pressure on them," Riley said, her voice steady despite the rising tension in the room. "We can't give them time to reorganize." The officers around her nodded in agreement, but no one could deny the reality that they were fighting an enemy with technology far beyond anything Earth had ever seen. The aliens could send wave after wave, and each one seemed more powerful than the last. But there was one thing the aliens didn't understand. They had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to survive, and to fight back. Riley turned to the team of scientists gathered around the table, their faces pale from the endless hours of research. "What's our progress on their energy source?" she asked. One of the scientists, Dr. Larkin, spoke up. "We've identified it. It's unlike anything we've ever encountered, an energy field that powers their ships and weapons. We believe if we can disrupt it, we can neutralize their fleet." Riley's heart skipped a beat. This could be the key to turning the tide in humanity's favor, but she knew it wasn't going to be easy. The energy source was deeply integrated into the alien ship's systems, and even the slightest mistake could lead to catastrophic consequences. They had to get it right, or they risked losing everything. As Riley processed the information, a report came in. The aliens had begun their counterattack. Their ships were moving in tight formations, and they were heading straight for Earth's last remaining defense stations. The countdown to another massive assault had already begun. "Get ready," Riley muttered under her breath. "This time, we won't just fight back, we'll finish this." The first wave of the alien counterattack was swift and merciless. Ships descended from the sky like a swarm of locusts, unleashing wave after wave of devastating firepower on Earth's last defenses. The sky was filled with explosions as Earth's defenses crumbled under the pressure. Riley watched the screens with clenched fists, her mind racing. They had anticipated this, but it was still hard to watch their cities being destroyed once again. In the chaos, there was only one thing they could do: survive. Earth's forces had to keep fighting, even with their backs against the wall, and for the first time, Riley realized that humanity's greatest advantage wasn't their technology, it was their ability to endure, to keep fighting even when all seemed lost. "We need to regroup," she said, her voice cutting through the noise of the command center. "We fight smarter, not harder. We find their weaknesses." The decision was made in an instant. Riley sent out orders for every remaining fighter and resistance cell to converge on the alien motherships. They would target the heart of the fleet, the command centers, and the energy sources powering the alien weapons. It was a risky move, but it was their only chance to push the aliens back. Hours passed in a blur of action and strategy. Earth's military forces, now united under one command, launched their attacks. Fighter jets raced toward the alien motherships, firing with pinpoint accuracy at their vulnerable spots. Each explosion on the alien ships felt like a small victory, but the aliens fought back with a viciousness that was unimaginable. Captain Riley watched as the battle unfolded before her eyes. She saw the damage, the destruction, but she also saw something else. The humans weren't giving up. They were pushing back, they were fighting back, and they were making a dent in the alien fleet. Every explosion on the alien ships, every crack in their armor was a testament to humanity's strength. But just as hope began to flicker, something unexpected happened. The alien ships began to retaliate in ways they hadn't anticipated. It was as if the aliens had learned from the humans' tactics and adapted in real time. The human fighters, so fast and precise just hours ago, were now being picked off one by one. The aliens had begun to counter their every move, and Earth's forces were running out of time. "We've got to act fast," Riley shouted, her voice filled with urgency. "We need to take out their energy sources now." The plan was set into motion. Riley and her team boarded their most advanced fighter, a sleek, agile ship designed for deep infiltration. They would be the ones to reach the alien mothership's core, the very heart of their operation. If they could disable the alien energy source, they could bring the entire fleet to a halt. As they made their way toward the heart of the alien fleet, the tension was unbearable. Each second felt like an eternity. The alien ships were everywhere, firing at anything that moved. But Riley's ship was fast, too fast for the aliens to catch. It darted through the chaos, moving with deadly precision. Its mission clear: destroy the energy source, no matter the cost. With the mothership looming in front of them, Riley's heart raced. This was the moment. They had reached the alien core. The explosive charges were set, and with one final breath, Riley gave the command. Now, the explosion rocked the alien ship, sending shockwaves through the fleet. The energy source was no more. For a brief moment, everything went silent. Then, the chaos erupted once more. The alien fleet began to falter. Their ships, once so powerful, were now powerless. The tides of battle had shifted, and though the fight was far from over, Riley knew that humanity had just taken the first real step toward victory. The battle above Earth had reached a fever pitch. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and the hum of distant explosions. The alien fleet, once formidable and unchallenged, had suffered a significant blow, but they were not finished yet. Even with their energy source disabled, they weren't going to retreat without a fight. Riley's heart pounded as she watched the aftermath of their most daring mission yet. The alien ships that had once appeared invincible were now vulnerable, their systems flickering, but the humans knew better than to think this would be easy. Back at the command center, Riley's team had barely caught their breath. She turned to her officers, her face set with resolve. The fight was far from over. But now, they had a fighting chance. The alien ships were damaged, but they had adapted, just as humanity had. The core of the alien fleet had been crippled, but there was something else, something far worse than what they had imagined. "We've caused them significant damage," Riley began, her voice steady despite the rising tension, "but they're regrouping faster than we anticipated. The question is, what do we do next?" A silence filled the room as her officers exchanged glances, knowing the gravity of what was at stake. Earth had been pushed to the brink, but it was no longer just a matter of survival. It was about proving that humanity could not be destroyed, not by alien invaders, not by anything. One of the officers, Lieutenant Carter, spoke up. "Captain, if we can disrupt their communication network, we might be able to cut them off from each other. They'll be less organized. We'll have a chance to hit them harder." Riley's mind immediately began to process the idea. If they could disrupt the aliens' ability to communicate across their fleet, they could cause confusion and chaos. The aliens had relied on perfect coordination up until now, but if they were fractured, their collective strength would falter. The humans could take advantage of that. "Do we have the technology?" Riley asked, her gaze fixed on the map that now glowed with red dots, indicating the locations of the remaining alien ships. "Possibly," Carter replied, pulling up a series of schematics on the screen. "We've been working on a disruptor system, but it's still in the testing phase. It's risky. If we launch it now, we don't know if it will work. We could end up shutting down our own communications." Riley didn't hesitate. "Do it." The risk was enormous, but they didn't have time to debate. Earth's forces needed an edge, and this was it. As Riley looked out of the window at the burning remnants of Earth's once thriving cities, she knew that there was no turning back. It was do or die. The scientists and engineers worked furiously to deploy the disruptor, setting up the massive array that would send a pulse across the alien fleet. Every second felt like an eternity as the team scrambled to get everything in place. The fate of Earth was hanging in the balance. The first wave of the disruptor pulse launched, and immediately, the atmosphere seemed to shift. On the holographic map, Riley saw alien ships pause. Some of them seemed to hesitate, their movements sluggish and erratic. The communication grid was starting to break down. "It's working," Carter said, a hint of disbelief in his voice. For the first time in days, Riley allowed herself a moment of hope. She'd always believed in humanity's ability to adapt, to come up with solutions when there seemed to be none. But as the pulse continued, something unexpected happened. One of the alien ships, previously crippled, suddenly surged back to life. The disruptor had done more than just disrupt their communications, had triggered something within the alien technology, something they hadn't anticipated. Before Riley could react, the ship began to charge up its weapons, preparing to retaliate. The alien fleet was no longer disoriented. They were angrier, more determined. The pulse had inadvertently given them an unexpected boost, and now, they were coming at Earth with everything they had left. "We need to pull back," Carter shouted. "This is too risky, we don't know what we've triggered." But it was too late. The alien ship fired, unleashing a destructive beam that tore through the atmosphere. The shockwave sent Earth's forces into disarray. Riley's heart sank as she watched the blast tear through one of Earth's last defense stations, sending debris and smoke into the sky. The disruptor had worked, but at a cost. "We can't stop now," Riley said, her voice calm but filled with determination. "We've come too far. If we back down now, it's over." Her team rallied behind her, knowing that their only option was to keep pushing forward. Riley's mind raced as she processed their next move. They had unleashed something they couldn't control, but there was no turning back. The aliens had just become more dangerous, and the human forces had to be ready. As the alien ships regrouped and prepared for their next strike, Riley realized the true nature of the battle they were fighting. It wasn't just about defeating the aliens, it was about surviving long enough to prove that humanity could not be wiped out by superior force. The aliens had made the mistake of underestimating Earth's will to fight, but this next wave would test that resolve like never before. Riley turned to her team. "Get the rest of our fleet ready. We've got one chance to end this, and it's now or never. We can't afford to wait." The final stage of the battle had begun. The alien ships, now more focused and deadly than ever, would clash with humanity's forces once again. Riley knew that the aliens weren't the only ones capable of adapting. The next move would be humanity's, and it had to be swift. If they could hold their ground for just a little longer, they might be able to turn the tide for good. The countdown had started, and everything that Earth had fought for in the last few days hung in the balance. It was a race against time. Who would break first, humanity or the alien invaders? Riley's mind was sharp, her resolve unshaken. The future of Earth depended on this next move, and no matter the cost, she knew they would fight until the very end. The battle was far from over, but humanity had already proven one thing: they would never go down without a fight. The battle raged on, and Earth's fighters were stretched thin. The alien fleet, relentless and now fully recoordinated, had pushed Earth's forces to their limits. Riley, now aboard a command ship floating far above the chaos, could see the sky below her, once a bright blue, now clouded with smoke and debris. The once imposing alien fleet had been whittled down, but they still outnumbered Earth's remaining forces. Riley's thoughts raced. She had seen her soldiers do the impossible. Time and again, humanity had defied the odds. Yet, the aliens were relentless, adapting, evolving, and hitting back with all they had. The previous attacks had done significant damage, but it was clear that the aliens were not about to retreat. They had come to conquer, and they would not leave until they had achieved that. "We need to stop them now, Captain," Carter's voice crackled through the comms. Riley turned to face the screen, her face etched with concern. "They're advancing on the final defense grid. If we don't act fast, they'll have total control." Riley's hands tightened on the console. She knew that the grid was Earth's last line of defense. If the aliens breached it, they would have free reign over the planet's remaining resources. It would be the end of any hope for humanity. "Tell me the status of our reserve fleet," she said, her voice sharp and commanding. Carter hesitated for a moment. "Most of them are already engaged with the main fleet. We don't have enough ships to stop the aliens' advance directly." Riley's mind raced as she stared at the battle unfolding on the screen. The alien ships were approaching the defense grid with precision, but there had to be something they could do, a breakthrough, an unexpected tactic, a way to force the aliens into a vulnerable position. She refused to believe that they had already reached the end of the line. Send out a call for all remaining ships to focus on their weakest point. Riley ordered suddenly, her voice filled with a new sense of urgency. We'll have to take their flagship down. If we can disable it, their coordination will crumble, and the rest of their fleet will fall apart. We'll have a chance to finish this. Carter's eyes widened. Captain, that's risky. Their flagship is well guarded, I know, Riley interrupted. But if we don't take that risk, we lose everything. The command was clear, and the team sprang into action. The last remaining ships, fewer than 30, would have to make a final push. Riley knew that many of them wouldn't make it back, but they had no other choice. This was the last stand. Aboard their small fleet, the crew prepared for what would likely be their final mission. Riley stood at the front of her ship, looking at the brave soldiers who had stood by her through thick and thin. Some were seasoned warriors, others fresh recruits, but they were all united in their resolve. In their eyes, there was no fear, only the fierce determination to defend their home. We make this count, Riley told them as they closed in on the alien flagship. For Earth, for everyone we've lost. We don't stop until it's over. With a steady hand, Riley gripped the controls, her ship slipping through the chaos of space. It was a calculated risk they would need to weave through the heart of the alien defenses. Using every ounce of speed and stealth they had left, flagship, large and intimidating, loomed ahead like a beast waiting to strike. Every ship in the fleet knew their mission: get close, plant the charges, and then get out. If they could disassemble the flagship, the rest of the alien fleet would lose its cohesion, its purpose, and Earth would have a chance. The fleet approached the flagship's outer defenses. The alien ships fired relentlessly, but the human fighters darted through the barrage, weaving in and out with the precision of skilled pilots. Riley's ship led the charge, narrowly dodging laser fire as she closed the gap to the flagship. Prepare the charges, Riley called out. We're almost there. The crew scrambled to ready the explosive charges to massive devices designed to penetrate the alien ship's hull. They needed to hit its main energy core, the heart of the ship. If they could destroy that, the entire flagship would go dark. It would be a huge blow to the alien force. Riley's pulse quickened as they drew closer. It felt as if time slowed. Every heartbeat, every breath felt amplified. She had come to this point knowing full well that the odds of success were slim. But the stakes were too high to back down. Just as they neared the flagship's hull, an explosion rocked their ship. Riley's body was thrown forward as the vessel shuddered under the impact. A warning alarm blared, and the crew scrambled to keep the ship steady. We've been hit, a technician shouted, his voice panicked. Shields are down to 20%. We've got to make it now or never. Riley's mind raced. The ship was damaged, but it wasn't fatal. Not yet. Keep us steady, she ordered, her voice a calm command amidst the chaos. We're almost there. With a steady hand, Riley guided the ship closer to the flagship's core. The charges were armed, ready to detonate, but she needed to make sure they would land in the right place. She adjusted the controls, guiding her ship with all the expertise she had honed over the years. Every muscle in her body was tense, but she kept her focus. This was no longer about the battle, it was about survival. Get ready, Riley said, just as they were within range. In 3, 2, 1. The charges fired, embedding themselves deep within the alien ship's hull. Riley could feel the tremor as the devices connected. Now, she shouted, and the crew hit the button that would trigger the detonation. The explosion that followed was unlike anything Riley had ever experienced. The flagship's core imploded, sending shockwaves through the surrounding fleet. The massive alien ship flickered for a moment, its lights dimming as its energy source collapsed. For a brief moment, the entire fleet seemed to hesitate, as if unsure of what had just happened. Riley's eyes were locked on the screen. We've done it. They're broken. But the fight wasn't over. The alien fleet still had a fight left in them, but their command structure was in disarray. Riley knew the battle had shifted in their favor. They had struck the heart of the invaders, and now, the rest of the fleet would fall apart. It wasn't over yet, but humanity had just gained something they hadn't had before: hope. The explosion that had rocked the alien flagship sent ripples through the very fabric of the battlefield. The once imposing fleet, now disorganized and fractured, was losing its edge. Riley's breath caught in her chest as the wave of destruction spread across the alien armada, scattering their ships and leaving many vulnerable. This was the break they had needed, their moment to push forward. But as Earth's fighters moved in for the final blow, a dark realization began to settle over Riley. Despite the damage to their command ship, the aliens were regrouping with an unsettling swiftness. Their resilience, as terrifying as it was impressive, gave them a singular advantage. the ability to adapt and recover faster than any enemy humanity had ever faced. The fight, it seemed, was far from over. "Captain, the alien fleet is still fighting back." Carter's voice crackled through the comms, tinged with disbelief. "It's like they're evolving in real time. Our forces are struggling to maintain momentum." Riley's fingers tightened around the control panel. She could see it for herself on the tactical map. The alien fleet, though in disarray, was quickly pulling itself together, their ships moving in erratic but effective formations. They were using smaller, more agile units to outmaneuver Earth's larger, damaged ships. The aliens, it seemed, had learned from their earlier mistakes. The disarray from the flagship's destruction had indeed thrown the alien fleet into chaos, but now they were recalibrating. The aliens were growing smarter with each passing minute, shifting their strategy. It was as if they were learning from the humans' tactics, countering their every move before the humans could even process what was happening. "We have to end this now or they'll adapt again," Riley muttered to herself, her mind racing. She glanced at her officers, all of them feeling the weight of what was at stake. The alien fleet wasn't just a military force, it was a terrifying organism, capable of evolving, adapting, and learning faster than anything Earth had ever faced. But Riley knew they still had one edge left: humanity's unyielding will to survive. "We need to push forward, now. If we don't, Earth will fall." "Everyone ready?" Riley asked, her voice sharp as she made eye contact with each officer. A collective nod echoed through the command center, but Riley could see the concern in their eyes. They had all seen what the aliens were capable of, yet there was no choice. Earth's survival depended on it. They had one remaining plan, a final all-out attack to cripple the alien fleet entirely. It would be a risky, desperate move, but it was their best shot. Their only shot. We're going after their energy reserves. If we can disrupt them, we can stop the entire fleet, Riley said, her voice laced with urgency. "Prepare all available ships. We move now." With the plan set, Riley's team immediately sprung into action. The remaining fighters, battered but unbowed, began to assemble. Each ship was patched together with whatever resources were available. Their pilots weary but driven by the knowledge that this was the final stand. This would be the strike that either sealed their victory or doomed humanity to defeat. As Earth's forces mobilized, Riley's eyes never left the screen. The alien fleet, though still massive, was showing signs of weakness. The flagship's destruction had dealt a devastating blow. But the aliens had rallied, learning and shifting their tactics. But their energy reserves, the lifeblood of their entire operation, remained vulnerable. "Let's move," Riley commanded. The remaining fleet launched into the fray with speed and precision, aiming for the alien fleet's critical energy hubs. This time, there would be no hesitation. Earth's fighters split into small units, weaving through the alien ships, dodging blasts and firing at the exposed reserves. Riley's fighter was among the first to breach the perimeter, slipping past alien ships with a grace that seemed almost supernatural. Her hands flew over the controls, guiding the ship through the narrowest of gaps in the alien formation. The battle above Earth had transformed into a high-speed, high-stakes game of cat and mouse. Every moment was a calculated risk. As Riley and her team moved deeper into the heart of the alien fleet, the enemy retaliated with furious intensity. The space around them seemed to ripple with the energy of each collision. Blasts rang out, shaking their ships. But the human fleet pressed on. There was no turning back now. If they failed here, Earth would fall. "Keep pushing," Riley ordered, her eyes narrowing with focus. "We're almost there." But the alien fleet had learned well. As Riley and her fighters inched closer to their target, the aliens adapted once again. They began to deploy smaller, faster ships that could move in unpredictable ways. They were no longer just attacking with raw power. They were attacking with precision, forcing Earth's forces to fight with every ounce of strength they had left. Riley's ship shuddered as another blast struck its side, sending sparks flying from the console. She gritted her teeth and steered the ship sharply to the left, narrowly avoiding a direct hit. The damage to the ship wasn't critical, but time was running out. The alien forces were closing in on Earth's remaining fighters, and soon they would be surrounded. "We've got to finish this now," Riley shouted into the comms. With a surge of speed, she guided her ship straight toward the heart of the alien fleet. The energy reserves were just ahead. The risk was enormous. If they failed to disable them, Earth would be left vulnerable to a final, devastating counterattack. But Riley had no doubt in her mind. This was the only chance they had left. The countdown began, ticking away with brutal precision. Riley's hands trembled as she aimed the ship's final missile directly at the energy core. The seconds stretched on, the weight of the moment unbearable, and then, with a single command, she fired. The missile tore through the heart of the alien fleet, slamming into the energy reserves with explosive force. The blast was deafening, sending shockwaves through space as the alien fleet erupted in a symphony of destruction. The core collapsed in on itself, sending a wave of energy that crippled the remaining alien ships. The once proud invaders, so close to victory, were now disintegrating before Earth's eyes. Riley watched in stunned silence as the last remnants of the alien fleet disintegrated in the void of space. The fight was over. Earth had survived. The aliens, their seemingly unbeatable force, had been brought to their knees. The final battle had ended, not with a single blow, but with a relentless, determined push from humanity. Riley allowed herself a moment to breathe. Earth had won, but at a terrible cost. Many had sacrificed everything to make this victory possible. But in the end, humanity had proven that even against impossible odds, they would never back down. They would always rise. The silence that followed the destruction of the alien fleet was almost deafening. Earth's skies, once filled with chaos and terror, were now clear, the smoke and debris slowly dissipating into the vastness of space. It was a strange, almost surreal moment, one that didn't quite feel real. The enemy was gone. The planet had been saved. Humanity had survived. But even in victory, there was no joy in Riley's heart. Her gaze was fixed on the remains of the battlefield, the shattered remains of Earth's cities, the broken ships floating in space, the countless lives lost. The victory felt hollow in the face of such destruction. They had won, but at what cost? We did it, Carter said quietly beside her, his voice filled with awe and disbelief. Riley nodded, her eyes never leaving the screen. Yes, we did, but it's not over. Not yet. There was still work to be done. The alien threat had been neutralized, but humanity's future was far from secure. Earth was scarred, its population devastated, its resources stretched to the limit. Rebuilding would take years, decades, perhaps even longer. But Riley knew that Earth had been given a second chance, and that was something worth fighting for. The command center was a mix of exhaustion and relief as the remaining officers began to gather the data, organizing the after-action reports. The battle was over, but the war for survival, for unity, for the future of the planet was just beginning. Riley's thoughts wandered back to the soldiers, the fighters, the civilians who had stood up and given everything they had to protect their home. They were the true heroes of this war, and their sacrifices would never be forgotten. We need to reach out to the rest of the world, Riley said, her voice firm. The alien fleet might be gone, but we need to ensure that Earth is prepared for whatever comes next. A moment of silence fell over the room. The officers exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of what Riley meant, but she could see the realization. In their eyes, they knew it too. This was not just about rebuilding infrastructure or mending broken systems. This was about ensuring humanity's place in the universe, about making sure they would never be caught off guard again. We've seen the power of the unknown, Riley continued. There are forces out there far beyond what we can even begin to understand. We can't let our guard down. The quiet buzz of activity in the room resumed as Riley's team set to work. They had a planet to rebuild, a people to care for, and an uncharted future to face. The next chapter of humanity's history was just beginning. Outside the command center, the world was already starting to change. News of the victory over the alien invaders spread like wildfire, offering a brief flicker of hope in the midst of devastation. But the world had seen too much to simply move on without consequence. Entire cities had been wiped off the map. The global economy had crumbled, and millions had perished in the fighting. People mourned their lost loved ones, and many more feared the future that lay ahead. Still, there was a sense of unity emerging from the ashes. Nations that had once been divided now came together, joining forces to rebuild what had been broken. Earth's leaders, united in their grief and their resolve, knew that the challenges ahead would be unlike anything they had ever faced. But if humanity could survive an invasion from an alien race, they could survive anything. Riley stood at the front of the command center, her mind turning over the impossible task that lay ahead. The aliens may have been defeated, but their legacy, their technology, their culture, their history remained. It was a sobering thought. They had learned from their enemies, and they would need to continue learning. What did it mean to survive in a universe that was far more dangerous than they had ever known? But Riley had no intention of being caught off guard again. She had seen the way the aliens adapted, how they had learned from their mistakes. She understood now that the universe was a place of constant change, of shifting power dynamics and unseen threats, and humanity, if it was to survive, would have to change too. We have the chance to shape our own future, Riley said, more to herself than anyone else. We won't let this be the end. We'll take what we've learned, and we'll make sure we're ready for whatever comes next. The room grew quiet as her words hung in the air. It was a promise, a resolve that would define the next phase of humanity's journey. They had fought for their lives, and they would now fight for their future. As Riley walked through the command center, she couldn't help but feel the weight of it all. The decisions made today would echo for generations to come. They would define the world her children and grandchildren would inherit. It was a heavy burden, but she would carry it. The fight for Earth's survival had been won, but the fight for its future was just beginning. And there was one thing that Riley knew with certainty: humanity would never again take their place in the universe for granted. The survival of Earth depended not just on the strength of its military, but on the strength of its will to persevere, to grow, to adapt. The battle was over, but the war for humanity's place in the stars had only just begun. As she stood before the window, watching the first rays of dawn break through the remnants of the battle-scarred sky, Riley made a vow, one that would guide her for the rest of her life, to ensure that humanity would always rise, no matter the challenge, no matter the enemy. The fight for Earth's future would never stop, and neither would she.